Well, today we're gonna review another Jeff Bridges movie.
Reject Nation, gonna talk about the Kingsman.
The Kingsman, the Statesman.
Oh, the Statesman. King Arthur, I'm gonna train you as seventh son. Sorry. Which movie is Jeff Bridges in? All of them.
Doesn't matter. What's going on, Reject Nation? Greg Alba here.
John Humphrey here.
We got these cool hookup hats.
That's right.
They said, you must recommend this movie if we give you these hats and these glasses. And that's not true at all, actually. They said, just don't release your honest opinion on the movie till after the 18th. And I said, we can do that.
Yeah, we can do that.
And fortunately...
You don't know when we're shooting this?
Our honest opinion is we both really enjoyed the hell out of this movie a lot.
Yeah, I had a great time.
We'll keep it simple for you guys, alright? Because I'm really grateful that while the trailer does have a few spoiler things that I wish could have been preserved a little more for the movie, like especially dealing with like Colin Firth's character. Yeah. Not even that is fully ruined. There's plenty to be had there that is not in the trailer that is quite a delight when you're watching the actual film itself.
Yeah, much like we were saying with It before it in a totally different way. It's like the trailer does hint at some cool stuff, but almost everything cool about the trailer has more stuff to it than just that.
I don't think this film is better than the first Kingsman. I don't, because the first one's fresh and it has an even stronger emotional context. Not that anyone walks out of Kingsman for the emotional aspect to it,
but you do
but
go
it does
on
help
coming of age journey.
Yeah, beyond that, we're at a part 2 right now, and with a part 2 to a Kingsman story, what's all I really care for this is that I can be invested in it and it be really exciting, really entertaining. I'm laughing, I'm being enthralled by the action. That's exactly what I got. It's just a really excellent, entertaining film that continues to do, like, you know, like American Assassin just came out last week. American Assassin, very serious spy thriller. I'm like, this is why I love Kingsman. A really fun, incredibly detailed, incredibly creative spy action comedy, and that's all I could have asked for. It's a really enjoyable film.
Yeah, when it takes advantage of kind of all the best things about now and all the best things about an older school spy movie, and comes out with a really cool blend of the two. And one of my favorite things about the second one was that they did ramp up both the humor and just the scope of the world.
It's more ridiculous. The flaws that I find with it don't definitely outweigh the film at all. Whenever I find a flaw with it, my flaw ends up going back to, well, here's why Kingsman 1 I thought was better, because Kingsman 1 handled this aspect better. There's like emotional aspects to it that I felt they could have honed in on a little bit more. But if I go into it here, it would be spoilers
kind
for
of
it.
Ruin it. But there are things that they do. There are characters they decide to give, you know, a decent subplots to, you know, that are, on one hand, you're like, oh, cool, like they're actually utilizing this character from the first movie, or they're utilizing this new character in an interesting way.
Flip side to that, though, there are some, there's a character I can definitely think of who does return where you're like, okay, I guess we're just not in the movie anymore.
Yeah.
I can't tell you who that is, but it's like, that sucks that this person's just not in the movie now.
You'll probably know right when it happens.
You'll know right when it happens.
It's like, it's weird. There's like a balancing scale, like, oh, you brought that character. Cool. Like, they never do that.
Yeah.
Why?
Why? I mean, I'm glad they didn't just write them out, but come on.
I feel you on that.
And there's some cool new characters in here. Specifically, the standout new character, without a doubt, is Pedro Pascal's character, Whiskey. Because in this movie, as you see in the trailer, Kingsman is basically targeted by the Golden Circle, which is kind of like Spectre meets Goldfinger in a way.
Yeah. You know, just another one of those shadowy organizations with a world domination scheme and a lot of firepower.
Yeah, and Julianne Moore is the head of it, and then basically they target Kingsman, and basically most of Kingsman's obliterated, so they have to work with their cousin, the American side of what a Kingsman is, their statesman.
Their doomsday plan basically ends up being, we're gonna work together,
and I guess. And the statesman side is quite interesting. It's not as fascinating or as cool in terms of the world exploration of the statesman, but it comes with a cool set of characters. That's the most delightful part to it. Pedro Pascal's character, Whiskey, yes, his performance is freaking awesome. The way he uses his revolvers is so badass. I'm like, that's the kind of Western revolver action I've been wanting to see in a movie. Like, that's what I've been wanting. It's like out of a video game. I love it.
I mean, and the lasso.
The lasso too is really badass for sure.
He probably accounts for the newest, freshest, action stuff in this movie anyway. Because there are a lot of those like really awesome one shot, or it looks like one shot anyway.
Oh, it's
action
all
sequences.
Yeah.
But in terms of stuff that we didn't get the first time, his action scenes are the freshest. For
Absolutely, yeah. Nothing tops the church scene from the first Kingsman. It's gonna be freaking hard to. If you don't compare, exactly what Kingsman Part 1 was, and you just accept this as a standalone movie, it's a pretty damn good movie. It's a solid sequel for sure.
They bother with things that you wouldn't have to. It's like they do expand the world, and there is more humor, and there is more action, but, they do bring a couple, surprisingly nice emotional beats for Eggsy.
Whereas I feel like the first one takes more time to have a little more emotional context here and there, like Eggsy's mom is the abusive stepdad. Those things that really play a very specific character arc for Eggsy. You still get some stuff here that if I tell you, it'll ruin the film, because there are some delightful things in his personal life story that I was like, oh wow, I didn't see that coming.
And some of the nicest surprises about that movie are on that side of the fence, and it makes you wish that it had a little more time to explore them, maybe just a bit further.
Because it could have given it some a bit more emotional context, but for a sequel, it does amp up the fun a lot more, and that's the number one thing I probably could have asked for this. Although there are some things that are in the trailer that you might want more of that you don't really get.
There's at least like one character.
Like Channing Tatum's barely in the movie.
Yeah, he's not in this much. Well, and there's a reason for that. But it is, just pound for pound, it is a bit of a bummer that you don't get to watch him kick ass the whole movie.
And one thing about Kingsman 1 ends on this note of this is a perfect movie that could have sequels. That's what I love about it. You could see a franchise, and you actually do want a franchise out of it. This one has aspects to it where you're like, I like the casting. Specifically, you got 3 main new actors with big names: Halle Berry, Jeff Bridges, and Channing Tatum. And I'm like, I like the casting here. They kind of feel like they're being used more to set up for sequels, though, as opposed for just being strong players for this specific one. Why get these huge actors for this specific movie? And I feel like their talents could be used. Hey, Jeff Bridges is doing the Jeff Bridges thing. He's doing the Southern Jeff Bridges thing.
I guess if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
And Halle Berry gets probably more screen time than Channing Tatum, but even the way her character sounds, feels like it's being set up for sequels.
She's
or
kind
a spin-off.
In the middle for me, because I didn't think she was useless, and I liked what she brought to it. But I thought we bothered to cast you, and there could be a bit more. Any complaint I have, there's nothing in this movie that stood out to me as what were you thinking, or what a bad choice. It's just stuff that could have become more, or could have been utilized more effectively.
Sure.
There's maybe one plot point that I was just like, I don't get why you needed to do that.
I feel that halfway through the second act, it kind of drags a little bit.
Same,
And I think it's because of the fact that they're introducing the Statesman. And the Statesman, like I said, is the characters are more fascinating than the world of the Statesman, because when you got British classy spy, that's a certain kind of energy. Then you go to Kentucky. It's a very different type of vibe and mood. It kind of slows it down just a little bit, but then it eventually picks it back up and ramps it up to especially the finale's crazy pack. The finale's bomb, by the way. The finale's great.
The finale's rad.
And although it kind of drags a little bit halfway through the second act, the finale's really fast paced.
Partway through Act 2, I started to zone a little bit and be like, I'm feeling the time of this movie, and then a little bit in the finale.
Yeah. There are some things that are a little bit like sequel syndrome, for sure. There are some things where I'm like, right when I was done with the movie, I was able to be like, well, this is a little too similar in terms of plot to the first one. This is a little too this feels like sequel.
This last time.
Especially in the finale, especially with what's happening in the big finale. There are plot elements to it dealing with Julianne Moore's villainous character and what's going on with the world. I'm like, this feels way too reminiscent. At the same time, though, I'm like, well, this is kind of a spoof, fun version of Bond, and I'm like, Bond was a little repetitive
it's just like
too.
Crazy modern Bond with a new world domination scheme every time, and spies got to get their gadgets together to stop it. And hey, I mean, I thought that Julianne Moore was terrific in this. I mean,
she's an interesting character for sure.
Yeah, she is an odd and interesting character, and I really
I don't think it's the performance you'd expect, even though you don't like see her talk in the trailers. It's like, this is not what I was expecting her to be like. Yeah,
same. Again, there were surprises to this, and some of them were in pretty significant parts of the movie. And I loved her whole compound, like all the island stuff. I thought was really cool.
Even with like Julianne Moore's character, you know how like in Samuel L. Jackson has the Mummy, what's her name, Sophia Boutella, and then she has like the #1 muscle thing with like a special gadget, and I'm like, that's exactly what Julianne Moore has too. But then again, that's like a Bond trope at the same time. That's a nice surprise too. They show that character with the hand that comes out.
Yeah.
That's like a more advanced Winter Soldier arm.
I didn't realize
in the trailer, you don't realize who that is. And then when you realize who it is, you're like, oh!
See, that's another thing. It's like a clever, like, oh, cool, and we're not going to give it away. Little twists like that made me invest that much harder because it didn't seem like they wanted to forget about the last movie like a Bond does, and that's one of the coolest things to me about this, is that they do carry certain things over and keep them going and pay them off in certain ways.
Yeah, well, there's a jam-packed finale, and the trailer does show, so I don't feel like I'm spoiling this, because the trailer has moments where you see that Taron Egerton and Colin Firth's character, they're fighting side by side in a couple scenes.
Yeah.
And that's a delight, because it dawned on me when I was watching it, like, oh yeah, in the first one you don't ever see them fight side by side.
Yeah. And it's just the master, you know, hands the mantle to the protege, and he takes care of it.
So it's cool. And also, I like the creative idea of how they bring back Colin Firth. They don't reveal that in the trailers, and I like what they infuse. I'm like, it's real, like, spy stuff. You know?
It's like, there's a ton about both these movies. It's super convoluted, but, you know, in terms of, bringing a character back from the dead, I really like the way they handled it. I'm surprised, because they could have cheaped it, and they didn't. And that's one of the more kind of memorable and impactful subplots of this movie. You know?
Absolutely.
And so it's things like that. It's like every complaint I have, everything that falls short or doesn't develop enough or goes on too long, there are a bunch of other things. This movie's kind of like a shotgun blast, because it is sort of bloated in the way that sequels are. It's just some of the stuff that it's bloated with is pretty terrific, and some of the stuff it's bloated with just could have been a little better.
I feel like this movie starts to lose points for me, my personal opinion. It starts to lose points for me when I compare it to the first one, and I'm like, the first one did this a little bit better, so then this one loses points. But in terms of what this movie is, it's just a terrifically entertaining film. If you just want to have a damn good time at the theaters, go. People were laughing the whole time, and the opening scene, people were like, oh! Like, the opening, the first 10 minutes of this film are fantastic.
Well, there's at least one celebrity cameo in there that is
one utilized quite well.
One of the most fun ones I've seen in quite some time.
Oh yeah, and Mark Strong in this movie too. He's fantastic. Mark Strong, Merlin was great in the first one. I even like him more here. You know, like he's fantastic. This movie's even better when I think about it.
Well, that's the thing, is like, even if it as a film isn't as solid and as fresh, I feel like having seen the first one twice too, you know, like, it does kind of clip at a nice pace, and this one has its rough spots. They do bring in stuff that I love just as much, that I'm like, I would watch this again, like, totally.
So if I were to give it a rating, I would give it 4 out of 5 whiskey shots, or like an 88%.
I'll give it 2 tequilas, because, you know, that's basically 4 whiskey shots.
There you go. Yeah, or the same alcohol percentage.
If the first movie was 2.5 tequilas, I would give this 2
tequilas. Okay.
On this rating system that makes a lot of sense percentage-wise.
Absolutely. And if you did see Kingsman: The Golden Circle, which you probably haven't yet because this review's coming out early, what are you looking forward to most if you haven't seen it yet? Or if you have seen it, what do you which one do you prefer? Well, alright, ladies and gentlemen, you can subscribe to The Real Rejects. Click that notification bell. John Humphrey. Twitter, Instagram, Patreon.com/The Real Rejects. Become a Patronaject today.
That's right. Do it.